Good morning, good Erev Shabbos. This week's Parshas Vayechi, has many fascinating storylines within it. The storyline that I would like to focus on is the burial procession of Yaakov Avinu. Yosef loses his father, the entire nation mourns, the entire country mourns, the Jews mourn, the Egyptians are mourning his loss as well. And Yosef institutes a 7-day mourning period. Really the first time we see in the Torah this concept of a 7-day mourning period. Perhaps some sort of parallel to what you and I know as the Shiva. To focus on the laws of mourning for a moment, there's a prohibition, or I should say, there is a practice that people refrain from going to festivities when they are in mourning. Any type of congregating or socializing of people in the context of a meal outside of one's home, a person should try to avoid that. There used to be special dispensation made for meals that are in the context of a mitzvah, let's say a bris, a wedding, etc. However, the Ramah of Moshe Isserlis notes that from the time of the 1700s and on, the practice has been accepted that all forms of celebration, regardless if the context is one of a mitzvah or not, should be avoided if one is in fact mourning the loss of a loved one. However, Shabbos is different. On Shabbos, there is a overarching, or there is a prohibition which usurps the prohibition that we just mentioned, and that is public display of mourning on Shabbos. It's prohibited to have a public display of mourning on Shabbos, and there are differences of opinion. Some people say that, well, if it's in the context of a mitzvah, and if it's on Shabbos, then you're allowed to go. Other people say that the rules of avoiding festivities are not applicable on Shabbos altogether. And ultimately, what we conclude is that everybody agrees that if a person is expected to be at some sort of meal or occasion or socializing on Shabbos, and they know that he's not there or she's not there because that person is in mourning, that would in fact be the example of a public display of mourning, and a person should make it their business to be there on that day. However, one caveat to mention here is that if a person is needed at a function, perhaps to play the role as the officiating rabbi, or to play the role as a photographer, or any of the above, then a person is allowed to be there because he's not playing the role as a guest, but he's playing the role as somebody who's doing their job. Now, if a person is pressured by the host to attend, then b'diavad, it's not ideal, but a person can go ahead, attend the function, stay for a few minutes, give a mazel tov, or just have the host recognize your presence, maybe take a little bite to eat, and then a few minutes later be on their way. And that's in the case of necessity. There are other occasions that come up where family members or friends will not be understanding, or let's say a person's immediate family member would not be understanding of the law, of the practice of staying away from such functions during the year of mourning. And therefore, for the sake of shalom bayis, peace in the home, for the sake of peace, then these laws would fall by the wayside. Let's say a person is needed to make a minyan. It's appropriate to have a minyan at these functions, whether they be minyanim or whether they be a siyum or what have you. So a person, if they're going there just to make the minyan, then even though they're a mourner, that would also be acceptable. So we see that there are specific examples which are given in which a person can attend, but we can tell by the nitty-gritty details that are involved and the special permission which is given that indeed we take it very seriously. And a person is meant to take that year in which they're mourning their parent and to reflect upon that, their loss, to reflect upon their legacy and what they're going to take away from that experience. And we owe it to them and we owe it to ourselves to take the matter very seriously. And the fact that these are the exceptions, very telling that we are very careful and we make sure that these examples are very specific, and the special dispensations which are given are really something which is not to be taken lightly. And we see that looking at the text, looking at our Masorah, looking at our practice, and hopefully we won't know from such sadness and such mourning, and hopefully we'll be able to only be together in times of happiness. Thank you, good shot.